little bit late. I was trying to get my guest on. So I have with me Donald Jeffries today. Hopefully you guys can hear me out there. Hi, Donald.
Hi, Ella. Great to be with you.
Great. So I'm glad to be here with you too. And I'm going to try and pull in my guest. So hold on just a second while I do that. Maybe you can say hello, Donald, and tell them about you while I do that.
Okay. Well, you folks might have heard me on Ella's a Whistleblower show that used to run Tuesdays. I was her co-host many times there. She's been on my show, which I protest, which will be on later today. And I believe Ella is getting her guest drawing from China, I'm going to be having an actor that's been in over 100 movies. His name's Nick Mancuso, and he's going to be with me for 2 hours today, and he's in Paris. So we're having some long-distance Skype calls today, so I hope you guys will tune into that at 5 p.m. Eastern today.
Okay, you still, Donald, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm not sure what's going on. I was really hoping we can get him on.
It's weird.
He's sitting there waiting for me, so let's see here real quick. Oh, he's restarting the computer, so we'll just talk. We will call him here in a minute. So,
okay.
Anyways, I just want to say welcome, everybody. I hope everyone's having a good day wherever you are, whether you're halfway around the world or you're right here in the United States. And what else? We're living in an interesting world these days, that's for sure, politically speaking and otherwise. And Donald, how have you been?
Okay, well, I've come a little minor health crisis, and hopefully back to normal there. I'm still writing. I'm excited about my book, Crimes and Cover-Ups in American Politics, 1776.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. I still need to read your previous book.
June 18th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this one has Ron Paul wrote the foreword to it too, so I'm really excited about that. And so it's getting some interest because of that. Some interest the other books didn't have. So hopefully it will. I heard the New York Journal of Books is interested. So we'll see if any of those people actually go after it, because it's controversial but this is particularly controversial because I look at Abraham Lincoln a different way than most historians do. I challenge pretty much everything in the book, like I tend to do. But I look at things honestly. But yeah, you can get it. It's through Skyhorse again, who now has an agreement with Simon & Schuster, so that's pretty cool. I think that is helping as well. And it's available. It's available for pre-order. I've already done some interviews. I was on Coast to Coast once, and I'm going to be back on there. It's going to have at least another part because the book does cover so many topics that I've had like 2 or 3 interviews so far that only did a part 1, because just talking about the Founding Fathers era up to the Civil War was one big show, and then the rest of it from that point on, World War I, World War II, and all that will be another topic for another show.
Okay. Just still trying to get him on here. So you should try to get Ron Paul on. He should be one of your guests.
I would love to. I'm amazed he wrote the foreword. I thought he would be receptive to it because I know a lot of my views are similar to his. He was influential to me, but has not communicated with me so far. But he liked it enough to write the foreword, so that's a possibility. Mm-hmm. That's a possibility. I know his assistant. I may try to
get him on.
Get him on. But a lot of these guys are. I was going back and forth with Ralph Nader's people for a while because Ralph Nader almost was going to write the foreword to Survival of the Richest, but for some reason backed out, and I don't know. I couldn't get them interested. So
my people or my listeners love those two. They would love for me to be able to have the opportunity to hear them or. Me to interview them, yeah. Got big fans out there.
I love them too. But I shoot really.
Cynthia McKinney also loved.
Yeah, well, Cynthia
people
McKinney, I did have on once, and I've had some of those good guests, but I shoot really high. This week
I well, right? They can only say no.
That's right. Why not? I shoot. I've been watching a lot of Monty Python recently. I always liked them, but I don't know. I was kind of going back and binge watching that. And, I love John Cleese, and he's politically incorrect now, too. He's kind of controversial. So I actually
why is he politically incorrect?
Well, he's in favor of Brexit. Not too many celebrities are.
No, you're right about that.
Yeah, and he talks about the effect of immigration on England, which again, not too many celebrities are talking about. And coming from Monty Python, he's going to be irreverent. So I thought that, boy, that would be wonderful. I could get him on the show. So his personal assistant actually got back to me, but said, we don't know, maybe down the road, but he has a full schedule now. So I'm that's probably why some of the weeks I don't have a guest, because I don't know. I don't want to settle for, I keep shooting really high. So I'm trying to get the best, the
Yes,
best,
possible.
most interesting people that haven't been on a whole lot of other shows, so, but who knows? I may get tired of ranting and raving, although I have had feedback that people like listening to me rant and rave maybe more than having the guests. So it's
Yeah,
I
because
don't.
you're expressing with their own thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, I can promote the new book all I want and talk about that stuff and just kind of talk about. Oh, I see somebody on video there.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
hey, he's here. Well, hello there, sir.
I'm not sure exactly what happened, but we're
That's
back.
okay. You're here now. So I'm going to turn it back over to our format that we had planned here. So hold on, everybody, and we'll get going. And I'll do my quick intro. So, this is a good place where truth and integrity meet, where I always introduce you to thought-provoking and compelling premier educators, whistleblowers, best-selling authors, journalists, activists, and celebrities. And of course, I have one of those people today, finally, one of the most fascinating people that I've been lucky enough to be in contact with, Mr. Hugo Victor Vaca. So thank you for joining us.
It's Victor-Hugo Vaca Jr.
Oh, I
Close.
didn't say that?
I've been called worse. Don't worry.
Okay. Okay, I thought I said it that way. And I'm going to tell everybody, give them a little background on you. You are an award-winning multimedia artist, director, screenwriter, producer, nightclub designer, modern art gonzo journalist, CEO, and whistleblower. And you have a company, Modern Art Music Movement, also referred to as MAMM, and the Victor-Hugo collection, which have been showcased internationally on every major broadcast television network, including ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, Univision, Telemundo, and cover stories, editorials, and featured articles from China to Iceland and the United States, and in major magazine and newspapers, including, but not limited to, New York Arts Times, Art Fairs International, the Miami Herald, the New York Times, New York Newsday, the Baltimore Sun, the Washington Post, the Sun Post, the Sun-Sentinel, and the Observer, and that's just a few. So, and you're also a whistleblower who has come forward to expose brutality at the U.S. Naval Academy, in which he attended, and we can maybe get into that as well. So it's a real privilege.
Yeah, wow, that was a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. That's just like a little bit of the iceberg there. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity to interview you. Seems like you're a very fascinating man.
Thank you. I guess I've been pretty busy over these past years.
Yeah, it seems that way. You keep yourself busy indeed. And you're very complex, and there's so much that you delve into. But the one thing I see is that they're art-based. It's art-based, most of the things that you do. And maybe you can tell everybody about what MAMM is, maybe a little more greater detail, because that's very fascinating to me.
Sure.
And I'm sure to the listeners.
Okay. The modern art music movement is the fusion of art, music, fashion, and literature, fostering peace, love, and compassionate wealth worldwide. Basically, it started because I realized that there was a growing problem with censorship in the United States. And when I was reaching out to journalists, I was realizing that this was before the internet started taking over, when print newspapers were still a force to be reckoned with. But I saw the future in the sense that they were telling me that they were about to lose their jobs, and they told me that they couldn't print some of the information that I was giving them. And so I realized that the way to communicate this for future generations, to basically keep a document of the zeitgeist of the times, was to paint it. So I started keeping a diary of the world on canvas and painting the news, which then became known as modern-art-gonzo-journalism, because basically the news that was being painted was through the eyes of my own experience as an artist, as a midshipman at the Naval Academy, and as an elected official in Miami, Florida, and also working my way through the justice system and running for president of the United States against John McCain and Barack Obama. And so basically what I realized was to communicate with people around the world, easiest was to just go back to basics and paint and to just do visuals. I realized how the paintings in the caves in France, done by the earliest men and women alive, uh, still tells the story of our human existence. And I also realized that there's a huge number of illiterate people, not only in the United States, but around the world. And so, how better to communicate the zeitgeist and the sign of the times than through pictures? And I realized with the advent of the internet how those pictures, and also my first name is actually Victor-Hugo, how I was able to reach a global audience. Because as it turns out, those that were doing dissertations on Victor-Hugo, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Les Miserables notoriety ended up going to my website, victorhugocollection.com, and seeing the art, and I was able to reach a global audience just through happenstance. Are you there? I don't know if I lost your connection.
Ella,
That
are you
was
there?
my fault. I'm there. So I muted my background because I had a cat and it just decided to get on my desk. So I apologize, everybody. So that's interesting that you have a background in politics and you're combining art. And so now moving to the visual arts. And I always say that in this day and age, the written word has been replaced by visuals. And so that seems to be so effective. And I think it has to do with the internet and with television and MTV. I started to see that start to change over like in the 80s. And now more than ever, visuals and art is much more significant, I believe. And so I understand what you're saying. So how did you end up running for president? And I know you were telling me part of the call that we have to be careful with politics. Maybe you can tell the listeners why.
Well, it's interesting because in order to uh, avoid censorship in the United States, I ironically relocated myself to China. What happened was I took the Diary of the World on Canvas that I had, and the story of the Packhead Jesus trials. The publishing.
Your audio is it's fading in and out a little bit. I'm not sure. And by the way, we're just on radio, but I'm recording this so I can do it on YouTube later on.
Okay, the we're actually I'm in the future. I'm 15 hours ahead of you. This is Saturday morning at 2
Like 2 in
a.m.
the morning.
Yeah, we're in Los
Right.
Angeles at 11 a.m. I'm speaking to you from the People's Republic of China, and I've been welcomed into this country. And as you know, it's a free state, and I am not here to judge their
You're
legislation.
breaking up again. I don't know what that's about. I know you were having computer issues earlier.
Oh, okay.
Let's
Um,
test. Now you sound good. I think you have to be very close to the mic.
okay, I'll be closer to the mic.
Okay.
So basically, what happened was the book, there's only two hardcover book printers in the United States. And one of them is the cream of the crop, and the other one is not so good. When I sent my book in and I signed the contract with this company, PRC Book Printing, the CEO, 2 weeks before I was supposed to go, and I was self-publishing this book. 2 weeks before I was supposed to go on book tour, I had been setting up readings in bookstores from New York to San Antonio, Texas. I received notice that they refused to print the book. They didn't explain why the book was not being printed. They didn't explain in writing why, because I asked them to put that in writing. And basically, I realized that I had no real other options. My other option was to go with a hardcover book printer that was not going to meet my standards, and I didn't want to put something out as a art book that was going to have the pages falling apart, because that wouldn't be good for the customers and it wouldn't be good for my reputation. So I
Mhm.
realized rather than fighting a legal battle, because now I was involved in a situation where, like the famous case of the baker that didn't want to bake the cake for the same-sex couples, written contract, I had a signed contract, and I had the money to pay for this. And so rather than going through a long litigious battle, I just decided to, there's over 1.5 billion people in China. So rather than trying to market to 375 million people in the US, why not just travel to China and get it done?
Right. It's fading out just a little bit again, so I'm not sure what that's about, but we're going to get through this interview. You have such great information, so I apologize to the audience for any audio concerns, but we're going to get through this. So one of the things I wanted to do, because I interview a lot of whistleblowers, and because you have that as part of your history, can you tell us a bit? Can we spend a few minutes talking about that? So what I understand, I actually watched one of the editions of Inside Report where they were interviewing you, and you were talking about what you saw and what you experienced at the U.S. Naval Academy. Can you go into further detail about that?
Yeah, that was when I had my first experience with toxic leadership, and when I realized that that we were going to be having trouble in the future, because these are the people who end up being presidents and leaders and congressmen and senators and decision makers in our nation. And I, I, I was witness to a lot of toxic leadership there. In particular, I was witness to the rape of a female midshipman. And what struck me as shocking was that, well, the whole incident was trying to be covered up, and nobody spoke up for this woman. And I had a knife put to my throat and a gun put to my head. But the thing that was instilled in us was that we would not lie, cheat, or steal. And at that age, at the age of 19, I had to make the decision of basically doing the right thing, even though an underlying darkness that existed there was that you rate what you skate, which is now what's impacting the United States, is that a lot of people are just getting away with what they can because a lot of people in the United States are just putting up with it, which is basically what I saw happening at the Naval Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to how I started the modern art music movement, when I was an elected official in Miami, Florida, I was entrusted with the lives of 1,500 residents in a place called North Bay Village, Florida. I found out through information of the residents that the owner of the building, Dr. Charles Edwards, a Baltimore spinal surgeon, was an alleged serial killer. So I had to figure out what to do in that situation. I contacted the FBI, I contacted the police, I contacted journalists. The FBI, interestingly enough, asked me if I had. And so, like I said, I just decided to paint what I was seeing around me. And the reason I did that was, for example, when we had Army Navy games and some stuff, so I realized Ganda. And so I started painting what I saw at the news agencies and said, look, I was involved in a case called the Crackhead Jesus Trials.
Mm-hmm.
Judge was involved in judge shopping. And that's how I found out about judge shopping, which is something that's happening now. He told me that I couldn't talk about or write about what I knew. He never told me I couldn't paint the guy.
We lost your audio again.
He didn't want me to use his name, so I had to create cryptic ways of uh, um, sending that information out. I used Fibonacci numbers. I used different kind of information in the paintings
Oh,
to
wow.
disseminate the truth and also not be held in contempt of court. So that's where the origin of Crackhead Jesus came about, and that's why I believe the graphic novel was censored, is because a lot of people thought that I was blaspheming and accusing Jesus of being crackhead, which is not the case at all. What happened was, at the time, I was a businessman who owned properties, and one of my tenants got high on crack, went to work, got on his desk, and claimed to his employees that he was the new Messiah and that they were now his disciples. So when I went to hire an attorney to evict this guy, because he told me when I went to collect, he says, Jesus don't pay the rent. Of course, I said, unless I get footage of you walking across the pool, Bank of America is not going to believe that I'm renting to the new Messiah. So the attorney said, you're hiring me to evict Crackhead Jesus. And that's where the title Crackhead Jesus came. They're banning.
Yeah.
So even though there is the First Amendment, the government is finding ways, the U.S. government is finding ways to be like a police state. So therein lies the iron problem. It was a bellwether for me for the past 10 years that I've been, and also to see how Facebook and Instagram are censoring people.
Yeah, that's really a concern. And one thing that I think I saw an interview, one of your interviews, you were talking about this as well. People take things out of context. They don't even take the time to read, to find the metaphor, they just don't get it, I think. We live in a world where people don't even think anyways. I mean, everyone just goes to Google. You don't have to figure anything out for yourself. You don't have to do true research. And so that is an issue, and I'm sure you had major lashback from the Christian communities because of the title, but they probably didn't even read the book. That's my best guess.
I was actually getting death threats from people who would come up to me when I was promoting the movie, which I made called Crackhead Jesus the Movie. And I was at the Super Bowl, and I was carrying a banner that said, Crackhead Jesus is coming. I actually have a sticker that I made. And I also had it put on taxi cabs for your audience that can see on video. I had 50 cabs in Miami during spring break emblazoned with Crackhead Jesus is coming on it, and they were driving around all during Easter and during the holidays. And again, the metaphor for Crackhead Jesus is what's happening now in the United States of America, how basically it's the definition of Crackhead Jesus is a contemptibly obnoxious person, a jerk, a person who indulges in hypocrisy, a hypocrite, a person or force seen as opposing Christ, an antichrist, a person or thing regarded as supremely evil or as a fundamental enemy or opponent, a devil or a Satan. So it's actually become part of the English vernacular. And when people would come up to me and say, I would kick your ass for saying that about my Savior, I would just look at them and say, well, what would Jesus do? And obviously Jesus wouldn't do that. So it is a metaphor, and art is...
No, we'll be right back, guys. I'm here with Victor-Hugo Vaca and author Don Jeffries. We are having a little bit of an audio issue. He is in China, so there's definitely some kind of issue that is a kind of we're being challenged with. But this is still an interview that you've got to be listening to. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Donald Jeffries. I'm sure he has questions for Mr. Hugo. So go ahead, Donald. The floor is yours.
Oh, thanks, Al. I appreciate that. I tend to write about almost exclusively controversial issues and topics myself. So this is right up my alley. And as we talked about during the break, I find it ironic that you had to go to China of all places to get your book published. I think that says a lot about the state of censorship in the United States. So I'm also in part of an organization. A bunch of us are trying to do something to stop the online censorship that platforms like Facebook and Google and Instagram, Twitter. It's just amazing. They're cracking down on alternative views, mostly on the right, and I'm mostly on the left. But still, it's something that it really is troubling because we need to keep this free platform up because we know the rest of the mainstream media is awful. As a whistleblower, I think where do you get your courage from when we look at the state of the most high-profile whistleblowers out there? Look at Bradley. Chelsea Manning is back in prison. Edward Snowden is still in exile, and Julian Assange is apparently very sick from what we hear. He's not being trotted out in the media. A lot of people think maybe they've already knocked him off. So what do you? Where do you have the? Because I think we're going to have a hard time in the future having whistleblowers come forward because all they have to do is look at what happens when people get a lot of media exposure for exposing some wrongdoing. Even the public seems to be largely against them. So my hat's off to you having the courage to do it. And so just you might want to comment on that.
For me, it's having being grounded spiritually when you realize that we are all in spirit, that we came into this world in spirit and we're leaving it in spirit. You lose fear. And fear is what keeps people from being a whistleblower. They're afraid of poverty. They're afraid of pain. But if you stay in spirit, that just leaves. I'll tell you, I realized that, thankfully, at a young age, growing up in New York. I grew up in New York when times were different, when Times Square was filled with pimps and prostitutes, not Toys R Us and M&M stores.
You're still fading in and out. I don't know what you can do. Maybe you can just go right next to the microphone or something. But
Okay. And so I was saying that when I grew up in New York.
Now it appears like you're frozen.
Oh, really?
Okay. Well, now I hear you now. So I guess we're just gonna have to deal with it. So the audience out there, just understand it is what it is. I had this audio issue a lot on my show as well.
Okay. This is a call from China, so who knows?
Yeah.
But basically, as long as you stay in spirit.
Oh, we've lost him completely, it seems like.
Yeah, I did. Oh.
Hello? You there?
Hi. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll because you said it a few times, I know that you grew up in New York City, just to kind of do an overview here. You grew up in New York City in a time when New York Times the New York Times Square was not like it is today. It was pimps and prostitutes and drug dealers, and you didn't have that fear. So somehow within you developed you probably developed a sense of fearlessness in some way, just growing up the way you did.
Well, also, you have to realize we all have to sleep at night. And when I was at the Naval Academy, and even though my life was threatened, you have to have that sense of just doing the right thing and living by the golden rule.
That's right.
And I would not have been able to live with myself all these years had I not actually spoken up and stood up for my sister, who was fighting for democracy like I was in the military. I mean, she was attacked by someone that she just allowed her to.
Did you say compassion? Again, you faded out. Compassion or passion?
Compassionate wealth.
Wealth. Okay.
Yeah, compassionate wealth. It's nobody's talking about it. I mean, you hear the negativity on TV all the time, but I mean, compassionate wealth is the opposite of greed. And right now, there's an epidemic of economic fraud going on in the United States that doesn't work. All the major religions are opposed to usury, and yet that's what right now is propelling the U.S. bank system. And the future generations are going to have to pay for the bank bailout. Meanwhile, student loans are racking. People here are happy. The people here, there's progress. There is construction going on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Narratives and
False narratives and false accusations. What they don't realize is it's like the story of the tortoise and the hare. China is just barreling past us. The United States is going to have to deal with the fact that we are no longer going to be. It's because Americans are so distracted, they're not united. In China, I see people, they are so happy because now they used to have the abortion policy where it's just one child. People here are so happy that you see families with kids holding young babies, and there's an industry popping up here about children's clothes and nurseries and stuff. So it's a big industry here. Meanwhile, in the United States, everybody's wanting abortions to kill the babies. So it's a very bizarre situation what's going on. The one country is embracing that they got out of, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak in generalities. Not everybody wants to kill babies, and that's a generality, and I apologize. But it's just night and day here. What I'm seeing in China is just amazing. The United States, they're spying on citizens, but they're claiming to be a democracy. So it's fake. I mean, it's really fake in the United States. They claim that they have freedom of speech, and meanwhile they don't. And one of the things that I'm very impressed with here in China is that I actually see.
Well, I apologize. I was dropped from the call. I don't know if you guys were. Now I'm back, and I'm seeing myself on video for some reason. So I don't know what's going on. So,
very interesting.
Yes.
Could be the people of China. Could be the people of America. Who knows?
Yeah.
Very odd what's going on. Yeah. But it was fascinating that, to me, you said something about, and you said it several times, that the people in China seem happy to you. I just never, that's not how they're marketed here in the United States.
Yeah. That's another reason why I came to China, because one thing that I've noticed in the United States is that you can't believe what you see or hear on the news. And I just got back from Costa Rica as well. I was there for a long time, and I saw what's really going on in Costa Rica. It was barely reported in the United States. The teachers were on strike there for years. So here we are, our neighbors in Central America are not even being properly educated. Imagine one entire year lost in education for all students. And that's really crippling for society. And that's the reality of what was going on. I was there, I was witnessing, and I videotaped the teacher strikes that were going on.
Can you repeat that again, the last bit?
We really need to encourage education in the United States. It's very important. And we also need to encourage education around the world. And it's interesting, again, in China, that's what they're promoting. They're promoting education. That's why they're leapfrogging over the United States as a dominant world power. And again, Americans are really divided right now. They are caught up in the nonsense, and they really need to get focused. And that's one of the things that I'm so impressed with in China is how focused they are. And that also gives them a sense of belonging. I'll tell you, I haven't seen any homeless people in China. Everybody's taken care of as far as food and housing goes. In the United States, you see a lot of homeless people, but you also see a lot
Yes.
of garbage. And so I'll tell you, in China, you see people sweeping the streets. You see
Huh.
menial jobs, and they're happy to do it because it gives them a sense of purpose. In the United States, you see people, they're lost.
So you
Porn
don't see addiction. I'm going to just fill in the blanks for people. So you don't see the addiction. You don't see porn addiction. Is that what you said?
well, porn is illegal here in
Oh,
China.
porn. Okay. So drug
Porn
addiction.
and drugs are illegal here in China too. And since it's a police state, if you even make a phone call or you try to hook up with somebody for drugs, they're actually reading your messages and they will arrest you before you get to the drug. So there's no drugs, there's no porn, there's no drag queen story hour or anything like that going on here in China. It's just it's a different world. They're focused on progress. And
Hmm.
it's interesting too because even I'm noticing gas prices here. It's less than $1 per gallon. And what's amazing is the United States supposedly is independent as far as the fracking and everything going on, and yet gas in the U.S. is almost $3 a gallon. I don't understand how that's happening. So gas should be a lot cheaper.
Let me
President,
just interrupt for 1 second. So you're basically saying, because it's breaking up there, we've become a corporate nation, and I agree with that, and the lobbyists are in charge. And I absolutely believe in that as well. And before, when we were on the break, wow, my audio is really acting peculiar. Donald got dropped. It's very interesting. This is one of the most challenging radio shows I've ever done, but it's well worth it. And hello to China. Hello to whoever in America, whoever's interfering. Hello there. I hope you're enjoying our interview. Anyway, so you had expressed that you really are a patriot and you do love our country. And I want people to understand that. It's not that you're not patriotic, it's just you were seeing, you're comparing, you are experiencing what's going on as far as what's going on in America, as far as censorship. And it is really sad. And we talked about social media. Even on YouTube now, they're trying to quote unquote clean it up. Anything that's considered like a conspiracy is slowly infringing upon even our kind of content. So it's very frightening.
yes, I was banned. I was one of the first people banned from Facebook, and I documented it in this work of art. And my works of art have long titles on them. So this one, for example, was dated May 4th, 2016. And what happened was a photograph of me with Hillary Clinton's brother, Hugh Rodham, was posted on Instagram. And the photo was of me handing him a autographed Crackhead Jesus is Coming sticker to give to his sister Hillary. And 7 minutes after that photo was posted on Instagram, I was issued a digital death sentence. My Instagram page was deleted, and then my Facebook page was also deleted. And I contacted the newspapers and told them that I thought it was strange that a couple of weeks before the election, that because a photo of me with Hillary Clinton's brother was posted on Instagram, that I was banned from both platforms without giving any warnings. And the newspapers didn't believe me. They thought I was just being hysterical. But now it's starting to come out that conservative voices are being banned on social network platforms. So I titled this piece, Times Buys Tribune. Digital reporter gets Facebook, Instagram, Clinton 2016 social media censorship story as Fox News ponders public trust of biased reporting by news sources and chooses to publish narratives on local slip and slide, a stolen lounge chair, and adoption of a limp dog, begging the question, will Tampa Bay Times 2016 election report they they record they're a footprint of the Times. And so that was dated May 4th, and that's the day that I was issued a digital death sentence. And again, it was interesting to note that that newspaper decided to run stories on a limp dog and a slip and slide rather than the the foresight to see that censorship was coming.
Mhm.
And here was the first instance of it being made public, and they completely ignored it.
They
Then I
were
found,
censoring your censorship warnings in a nutshell.
yeah, I mean, that's May 4th of 2016. And, here we are in 2019, and now it's starting to become news. So that's the power of modern art gonzo journalism, that it,
Mhm.
it is able to tell future generations what
Mhm.
happened during these times in a way that regular news.
You get, I lost you there just for a bit. When you said when you visit public libraries.
I was visiting public libraries in the United States, and I was speaking to students in the United States, and they told me that my website, Victor-Hugo-collection.com, was banned, and that they couldn't get it because apparently my website was deemed adult content. So I realized then that I was being what's called shadow banned, and I've also had several of my videos on YouTube banned, and I was being shadow banned on Twitter. So there's a lot of things that I was realizing before the stuff became mainstream media news. Like, what
Mhm.
problems happening. China is without
Maybe
a doubt.
move a little closer again. That sometimes helps until it fades out again.
Okay, China without a doubt is going to be the global leader.
Yeah, I think most people that are awakened or people that are involved with alternative media and news, like our station and so many of the hosts that I work with, are definitely agree with that. We've lost Donald. He said he's getting the strangest messages and his video camera keeps turning on, so he's not even able to get back on the call. So thank you, Donald. I appreciate you and thanks for coming on as far as co-hosting. And so it's just me and you.
China must have Donald's number. I don't know what he did, but they don't want him.
Yeah, Donald's one of those people. He loves to disclose information that shouldn't be, or that the the powers that be don't want disclosed. So who knows? But I really think more it's like just someone monitoring what you're saying or what we're saying. So, but this has been one of the most interfered with calls, and I got a really strange message on mine too, saying Skype interference. I'd never seen that before. So.
I got to admit, when I came to China, I knew that I was going to be monitored. I knew that I was going to be spied on. And I was comfortable with it because I was told about it beforehand.
Right.
What disturbs me in the United States is how the FISA court is being used to spy on America. And that's dangerous because the thing is, again, at least if you know what you're about to get into, that's one thing. But to be sold a false sense of security in the United States, that's a problem. And that's another reason why I'm here. Again, I'm here to show that, I mean, the United States is no better than China. So we have no place to be throwing stones at China when we're the least state ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, initially when our country was founded, all the right intentions were there. It's just unfortunate. There was money and power, and that it's hard for that not to become corrupt. It's somebody said, oh, even like I was finishing Game of Thrones, this is a funny comparison. At the end, it was how ultimately the best intended people can be corrupted by power. It was interesting.
That's true. That's why, as an artist, I've never been more humble. As an elected official, I was offered bribes every day. And
Really? Wow.
It was so scary. I realized everybody was coming to me asking me for favors and offering me bribes, and I couldn't imagine that kind of a life. That's why I really believe that there have to be term limits, and that you can't allow people who have served in government to then go on to be lobbyists. I think that's just what's destroying our country. Right now, around the world, the United States is known for exporting and producing liars, lawyers, and bankers. And really, that's nothing to be proud of. I mean,
We have lawyers making our rules too. It's just all about lawyers and corruption, as you well know. People don't understand how different our country is. Most people don't even leave the United States. They don't understand how odd it is, the whole litigious nature of our country. As just lawyers, it was founded on good lawyers in our country. A lot of the founding forefathers were lawyers. It's just it's been a real eye-awakening experience, to say the least.
well, it's interesting because the story of Crackhead Jesus is about false prophets and lawyers. And the way that I realized what was happening and what was about to happen in the United States was that when I was an elected official in North Bay Village, Florida, I went through the Crackhead Jesus trials, and it was a microcosm of what's going on right now in the United States. What I mean is that as I was walking up the stairs for this court case, where the lawyer that I hired to evict Crackhead Jesus, when he got the keys from Crackhead Jesus, when he was eventually evicted, he then moved into the property. And he told me that he didn't have the money for the security. I told him, I said, listen, I hired you to evict Crackhead Jesus. Now you've created a conflict of interest, because now not only am I your boss, but I'm your landlord. So I need you to, after you evict yourself, you're fired. He says, I'm not going to do that. If you try to do that, I'll keep you tied up in the courts in what's called a litigation vortex, that he would just file frivolous lawsuits against me, which would be more expensive than me just letting him live there for free.
Wow.
So I couldn't believe that this was happening, that the court system is so corrupt. And as I'm walking up the stairs to the courthouse, he tells me that his father is friends with the judge and that I didn't stand a chance. Now, I didn't understand how this was even going before a third judge, because I had already had his frivolous lawsuit against me thrown out two different courthouses, one in Miami, one in Broward, and then the next one showed up in West Palm Beach. Now, the judge, I did my research.
Get closer one more time. Maybe we'll pick you back up. About pedophiles. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Familiar with the Epstein case, the Lolita Express?
Of course. Oh, yeah. Very.
Judge Donald W. Heffield, he was the guy on that case. So anyway, when I got there, I did my research on him.
We just have a couple of minutes. Just want to give you a heads up.
Okay. I let him know that I realized that he was a corrupt judge, and he's the judge who told me that I couldn't talk about or write about what I knew. So basically, he was the inspiration for me creating modern art journalism, warn the public. And that's also why I ran for president. It's your justice system.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, thank you for doing that, and bringing attention is what we all need to do. And I do believe in the power of the people. We just need to be in numbers. We need to put pressure on political parties. We need to put pressure on the governments. Through sharing this information, that is the only way. Lots of people don't even know what's really going on. Lots of people don't even want to know what's going on. So I want you to be able to plug your books and your website. And I just want to say thank you. This has been a wonderful interview, despite all the audio issues.
Well, this is a golden age. So it's actually, we're getting out of the dark ages. People are now becoming woke in ways that are hard to describe. Art is the last bastion of free speech in the United States. It has to be encouraged. People have to get the message out through music, through film, through art. It has to be a positive message. Fear has to be vanquished. We are all here in spirit.
Well, we're out.